The Servant and the Crown, an ode to the fox and the grapes by Aseop. In the vast sprawl of the empire, where banners of crimson and gold draped the streets, and the palace glimmered like a jewel under the sun, there lived a boy named Thomas Miller. He was nobody, and everyone knew it. His job was to scrub soot from the flagstones until his knees split and bled, to polish silver until his fingers cracked, and to bow whenever someone of consequence swept by, which was often, for he worked in the palace of Prince Henry Tudor, heir to everything Thomas could not touch. Henry's life was the stuff of songs. He wore silk shirts embroidered with pearls and ate roasted venison until he sickened of the taste. Musicians followed him as though every step required a fanfare. Servants bent low until their spines ached. Thomas bent too, though the bile in his throat grew heavier with each bow. He gnawed stale bread while Henry dined on dripping fruit. He shivered in straw while Henry slept on a mountain of feather pillows. Every night, when the palace quieted and the torches guttered, Thomas whispered the same thought to the rats that listened better than men. It should be me. I would wear that crown better than him. It was a rumor that guided him to the Blackwood forest, where a woman once of the court lived in disgrace. They called her a witch, and Thomas, desperate enough to believe in anything, went to her crooked house on a night when the moon hid its face. She was waiting for him, tall and still in the doorway, eyes pale as milk. "You envy him," she said before he could speak. "You want his life, his face, his crown." Thomas's lips trembled. Yes. She dipped a ladle into a cracked mirror that leaned against the wall, drawing liquid silver from its depths. Into the vial, she let a drop of his blood fall, and the potion shimmered, as though a piece of his own reflection now swam inside. "Drink with him," she murmured. "Both of you. The wheel will turn." Her gaze sharpened as she pressed the vial into his hand. "But remember, when the wheel turns, it does not stop where you expect." The warning chilled him, but not enough to loosen his grip. He left with the vial pressed to his chest, as though it were the heart he never had. The chance came quickly. During a feast in the blazing great hall, Thomas poured wine into Henry's goblet, slipping the shimmering liquid into both his master's drink and his own. The lords and ladies raised their cups high, the firelight catching the rims, and together Henry and Thomas drank. The world tilted, a shudder, a tightening in the chest, a rush like blood flooding the skull. Thomas gasped, and the gasp belonged to Henry. He looked down velvet sleeves, jeweled fingers. His breath caught. He had done it. Across the table, a servant boy staggered, his eyes wide, his face twisted in horror. Henry, now in Thomas's body, clutched at his rough tunic and bolted from the hall. He fled to the servants' quarters, stumbled into the darkness, and found a cracked mirror. The reflection struck him like a blade. Gaunt cheeks, unwashed hair, soot-stained hands. He clawed at the image, at his own skin, desperate to tear the mask away. But the face clung, he whispered. No, no, until his voice broke into laughter. The butler entered then, scowling. Miller, quit idling. The pots won't scrub themselves. Henry stared. No beau, no title, no choking weight of expectation. For the first time in his life, he was no one, invisible, free. The laughter that rose in him was wild and strange, startling the butler. Scrub them yourself, Henry said, and the words tasted like honey. That night, in stolen rags, he crept from the palace. By dawn, he had boarded a ship bound for foreign shores. The waves opened like arms to receive him, and he never looked back. Thomas, meanwhile, basked in silk and sweetmeats. He sprawled on cushions, swallowed wine until it ran down his chin, and grinned at the courtiers who bowed so low their noses brushed the floor. This is life, he thought. This is what I was owed. But in the morning, the advisors came. Your Highness, the council awaits. Your Highness, tariffs must be signed. Your Highness, the marriage contracts require review. Scrolls piled at his elbows. Servants guided his limbs, dressing and undressing him as though he were a doll. Guards shadowed his every step. He was paraded before ministers, told when to smile, when to speak, when to sit. Thomas tried to protest, to insist on choosing for himself, but his voice was brushed away. The prince is in one of his moods, they said with indulgent smiles. The kind one uses for a child who knows nothing of the world. The cage shut around him. It was made not of iron, but of gold and expectation, and it weighed more heavily than chains. At night, he paced his chamber until the rugs wore thin, whispering to himself. The face in the mirror, Henry's fine-boned, princely face, mocked him with hollow eyes. Who am I now? Thomas or Henry? Time ground on, and Thomas's mind began to splinter. He laughed too loudly at council meetings. He forgot names, spoke nonsense, scrawled strange symbols across the walls of his chamber with candle soot. At meals, he sometimes refused to eat unless the food was tested for poison, though no assassin had ever dared approach. The advisors grew pale and restless. The king and queen muttered behind closed doors. The word madness crept through the palace like a draft, chilling every corner it touched. One night, Thomas slipped past the guards and stumbled back into the Blackwood forest. Once more, the witch stood outside her crooked house, waiting for him as though she had known he would return. Change me back, he begged, his voice cracked, desperate. I will give you anything. Gold, blood, my soul. She tilted her head, her mouth twisting into a smile thin as paper. You envied the crown, she said softly. Now you understand its weight. Nothing can be done without your original body. The weight shall crush you slowly. Her back turned, the door slammed, the conversation cut off. Thomas cried out, but the forest swallowed his voice whole. So it was that Thomas Miller sat the throne as Henry Tudor VIII, heir of the empire. His crown glittered on his brow, but his eyes were empty glass. He muttered to invisible advisors, laughed with ghosts, scolded the shadows that whispered behind the curtains. Servants hurried past, bowing low, but never meeting his gaze for fear of the sickness in it. And in the palace's high, echoing halls, the mad king walked alone, muttering to no one, his laughter bouncing against the stones until it sounded like the howling of the damned. Moral of the story: it is easy to despise what you cannot have until it is yours and you discover why it was never meant for you.